This video is basically Ohio, Cincinnati, where I grew up. Mostly where I grew up, things I used to do there, and all that. I'm going to put this the best way I can by audio narration and using some of the audio from the video. Some of it didn't come out too well. It wasn't the way I wanted it. Could have expected to do better, but so I'm going to do a little bit of both because there were a whole lot of things I wanted to talk about, and I didn't get a chance to. Left out. I hate that and I'm sure everybody else does it, when you do things and you mean to do things or you mean to talk about something, and by the time you leave and you come back, or by the time you leave later on, you realize, oops, I meant to do this or I meant to talk about this and I didn't, and then it's too late to. So enjoy. That's what this video is basically going to be about, and I appreciate everybody watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want. Welcome to Cleveland. I guess that's about all I'm going to see of Cleveland. Okay, so just to let everybody know that I was born here and used to play in this parking lot right here. So this is Lower Price here, where I used to grow up in Cincinnati. Used to be one of the worst neighborhoods growing up in the 70s. I don't know if it's still as bad as the 70s. Some say it's worse, but I don't know. But I tend to hold the camera down because I don't want anybody to get angry if I'm taking pictures of them, but I'm really not taking pictures of them, just the area. 3 things I wanted to mention here is pretty interesting, and I don't mention it in the video. One of them is there used to be rats the size of my leg. They used to be by the trash cans. Used to come out of the walls, so they were kind of scary. We'd have to watch what we were doing if we were messing with the trash. I remember I used to throw eggs out the window at them. Of course, I never told my mother, even to this day. Also, up above, where you see the yard above the wall, is where my brother fell out of a tree on your left, on his head. That could be why he's the way he is. Just joking. But also, there used to be a story about this man called Old Man Hatchet that lived in a house behind those trees above, not only above the wall, but there's a wall above the yard and above those trees, and they say if you get on this property, it'll attack you with an axe. It's just a legend. I don't believe it was true, but I tell you, no kids played in that yard hardly at all, from what I remember, and also nobody climbed in his yard, that's for sure. Also, there was a kid that lived next door. I can't remember his name. I think my brother remembers his name, who used to live there. We used to play in the train tracks back in the day, in the 70s, get chased by train, railroad police, whatever. And story has it that this kid was killed by one of the trains. We used to jump. Well, I didn't do it, but they used to jump trains while they were moving. And apparently I heard that he did make it and was cut in half in the torso. So this is the story anyway. And by the way, for those of you that didn't see my other videos, this house is haunted as all get out. Actually, the whole neighborhood is. I mean, I've seen weird things in different places. So, but this house definitely is in this area. There used to be another apartment on the right and the left side. The one on the right side was abandoned even when I lived there. But the one on the left, this woman named Miss Maxie or Miss Colston, I can't remember, used to live there. Not Miss Maxie, it's Miss Colston, I believe. Used to live there and had steps out in front, and they tore that down. She used to put this pink stuff when you scrape your knee and it would burn like hell. I've walked this street many times growing up, ran down this street many times growing up, played on this street many times growing up, especially in that parking lot. So I've seen a lot of fights across the street. There used to be a bar across the street called Blue Rock Bar. A lot of fights. First of the month. So many things happen here. It's so many memories, good and bad, mainly bad. They should just burn. If I had the money, I would buy that place, move these people to a better area, or move them to another area and tear that place down or burn it down. I can't understand why it's still standing. There's a lot of bad memories coming out of there. I just never understood why it's still standing. I believe in the 70s when we moved in there, 1970 to 79, the house was old. The apartment building was old. So, yeah, so I don't understand why they don't tear it down. Another thing, too, I've gotten hit by a car, running across the street. My nephew's he got hit by a car once walking across that street. So it was a lot bigger when you were smaller. But I was sitting there thinking, walking through that place, because I had this thought in my mind that I wanted to basically closure, I guess. And I feel like I didn't get that. But I don't think I will have any unless I go inside, which I don't think I can do. But yeah, if I had the money, I would tear it down for sure. Speaking of haunted, I thought was interesting is as I was leaving to get in my car, as soon as I walked out of the alley, I heard somebody knocking on the window. It was pretty close to my head, so it was ground level, had to have been. And I looked, and I didn't see anybody in any windows. So it could have just been me. I may not have been able to see him. But when I turned around and looked, there was nobody in the windows, so I thought it was weird. Okay, and I thought some things never change. And I noticed when I got in the car and I was about to drive off and I had the window open, as the car started moving forward, I could hear somebody knocking on the window again. And I was telling somebody in the car, I said, see, what did I tell you? Did you hear that? And they confirmed that they heard it too, so, but who knows? I thought it was weird. Speaking of first of the month, when I was mentioning about fights first of the month, Friday night fights to get their welfare check, Fridays to get drunk and spend it all to be fights. That Monday morning would come out to go to school and you would be walking in blood stains on the concrete. And you knew they were blood stains because they would start out red. And by the time Monday got there, they started turning brown. Used to be a lot of blood stains. And some of the alleys for some of these apartments could be the reason why they tore them down. Throughout the years, you would walk between the alleys. You would see hypodermic needles everywhere. Later years, you would see that. People with condoms on the ground and things like that. So you had to watch where you walked as you got older. But in the 70s, there was mainly a lot of blood stains. They tore down most of the buildings here, but I used to play in this parking lot when I was a kid. I used to jump that wall over there when the bullies chased me. Right here, there is a drugstore over there named Stan's, and right on this hill, where it's nothing but grass now. I guess it's been torn down for years, and there was an apartment above it, and used to have one penny candy. And one time I walked with a handful of actually it's a pretty funny story. One time I went in there with a brother of mine, and he told me, I don't know what had happened exactly, but I was looking at comic books while he was in there buying something. And I was so engulfed in this comic book, paying attention to what was going on, that I walked out the door without paying. Now, it wasn't intentional, but it was embarrassing because I got in trouble for it. And Stan kind of lectured me on it, and I got lectured on it. It wasn't really intentional. I don't know if they thought it was on purpose or what. But actually, my mother told me, do not do that again. It was a big lecture about taking stuff without asking. And, it wasn't, they didn't use the word stealing. They just called it taking stuff without asking. So one day I walk in there with a handful of pennies to buy penny candy, because it was kind of a big deal around back then. And as soon as I walked in the door, there was these two men, one black, one white. One was carrying a sawed-off shotgun. The other one was carrying what looked like a .357. Now, when you're young, the guns always look big. But I guess I didn't startle them, because they turned around and pointed the guns at me and told me to move out of the way, shorty, and they ran out with a bag of stuff. Apparently, I walked in on a robbery, because when I looked in the back and they had a bag of stuff, I kept saying, I didn't know where Stan was. I didn't see him, and I said, Stan. I kept yelling, Stan, they took your stuff without asking. Stan, they took your stuff without asking. And that's when I realized, when I saw him back there, he was taped up to a chair, and he had tape around his mouth. And he was being robbed, or he got recently robbed by the men that were standing there in front of me, who told me to move out of the way, shorty. Of course, I'm 6 foot now, so. But they ran out. And I heard they lived on top of the hill. And when the detectives come to my door, my mother refused to allow them to talk to me about their description. Now, because they weren't wearing masks or anything. They just walked in there. And I know they, thinking of it now, they probably did it quite often, because they didn't look startled when I walked in the door. So I remember I used to play on those steps, too, on the side, Star Wars, Evel Knievel motorcycles. And that house right there is where I grew up with a friend of mine who lived in that house as well. I distinctly remember one time coming out of that drugstore in that house and people on the street crying about how Elvis is dead, Elvis is dead. I believe that was 1977. Also, one thing I want to mention is, which can be very post-traumatic to a kid that age. Me and that friend of mine that lived in that house was walking down the street one day. We were playing or whatever. I don't remember what we were doing. But this woman comes running down the street, full blast, screaming her head off, trying to get anyone's attention. She wouldn't say any words. She screamed at me, looked at me, screamed at me, looked at him, screamed at him, and just kept running, covered in blood from head to toe. You couldn't even recognize the skin on her body, her face, because her whole face was covered in blood. Her hands, she was screaming, looking at her hands, just the whole body. And it turns out that at the end of the road is where she lived, and she come home and her boyfriend shot himself in the head right in front of her, and she was just totally delirious. That's all kinds of scary, bad memories in this neighborhood.
Feast your eyes on this. You only wish you had this. You people only wish you had this.
I have no idea where that belching sound came from. It wasn't us. But I think it was a straw. But I tell you, this is probably one of the greatest things about Cincinnati, if you're ever in town, as far as food goes, is Skyline Chili.
Okay, so we are on Glenway Avenue, Cincinnati, of course, where I grew up. And
believe that library has always been there. It's kind of odd. Looks like what it used. I think it used to be a bank. But this theater, it's now a performance hall. Used to be a regular theater, as you can tell. I've seen The Outsiders in this theater. That's how long ago it's been around, longer before I was even that. So it's been a theater way before even the 80s. So of course the funeral home, which the parking lot I'm in, is still around, but as far as I remember. But the theater's always been here. And then, you know, you can't tell you when I was a kid, teenager, how many times I've walked this street, rode bikes down this street. It's odd. It seems so much bigger than it was when I was down here. So much bigger. When you're young, I guess, because you're so short. Now it just seems so small. It don't seem as far to walk as it used to. So guys, I am at Trishs now. Remember I used to eat those growing up, the ones with the bun in the middle. Super big boy. Super big boy. You know what? I think I'm gonna do that.
What?
Have that super big boy platter. Big boy. Big boy. By the way, I used to eat here when I was growing up. I remember there used to be counters over here. And those seats like Waffle House. And they would have little tiny jukeboxes on the counter. It used to always bug my mother for change. She would tell me no. Those are the days. Big boy ketchup. Eating bowls of cereal, the little cereal boxes before I went to school. And they remodeled this place quite a bit since I was here last. So they still haven't changed much. Still got the mayonnaise to put on your hamburger. It's about, you know, as small as it was when I was a kid. It's about the same. She got, look at them big old carrots. She got, looks like slice of turkey, mashed potatoes, and so this is definitely old school if I ever seen it. Definitely old school for me. Still giving me the mayonnaise. So it was good. Like always, Trishs is always good. And there's Mr. Big Boy right there. The early 70s, I remember coming here. Yeah. It's changed a lot. They remodeled it awfully a lot. You know, the thing now doesn't wear a hat, but this one wears a hat. So, always fun to go to Trishs. So, this used to be the Boys Club, Boys Clubs of America. And if, you know, when I was growing up here in the 70s, they used to have, you said, a picture of me when I was looking up like this. It was in front of here. And it's a family center now, so I don't know what they do there. But, yeah, I remember when I was probably at Montessori. I believe Montessori used to be over here. Used to have like little classes for children, and they used to bring me through this way. I remember they were around here somewhere, but I don't remember exactly where. But I remember walking through here, and they used to have classes when I was like pre-kindergarten. And I remember they used to walk me back there with a bunch of other kids.
What would you do?
I don't remember.
Nothing good.
Nothing good.
Good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But they had, a lot of it hasn't really changed much. But I would take the, see there's the steps that go down to Lower Price Hill. This is exactly where they used to have, so you can't really walk across the street because there's not much of a sidewalk. Yeah. This is what they call the mile-long steps. And I used to walk up these steps when I was a kid. From West High, from Price Hill, all the way back down here. And it just keeps going and going. I'm going to have to walk up a little bit. And it's going to be a little rough. Okay. Yeah. And it still goes up to the other street. And then there's another set of steps that go up the other street. I'm going to try to walk up these steps, but they seem a little bit easier back then than they do now. See, it didn't bother me back then like it does now. Heights.
You're a kid. What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Yeah. But it goes all the way up there, and it goes all the way up the other hill, then back down here. See, if you look, you can see some of the steps are broken. This is where the trolley cars used to come down. I'm going to try to make it my way back down. I'm not going to take any chances, but it's too dangerous. Let's see where the trolley cars used to connect, and it's kind of hard because the trees are kind of blocking it. I'll walk a little bit up this way and see if I can find out exactly where it is. This is historic because there's so many pictures of it at this corner, Glenway and Wilder, and the stairs keep going up that way, all the way to the top where that building is up there. Can you imagine walking that distance? All the way up to where that building is.
Oh, way up there?
Yeah.
I was looking at this up
No.
there. You're talking about that
It
building.
stops where this road is, but it goes back up again.
Oh, okay.
Now you see why I used to take the shortcut when I lived on, because up there is where Woodlawn Avenue is, and
Oh,
Rapid
okay.
Run and everything.
Yeah.
And I used to just walk down that small road and then just come back down this way instead of going all the way back down this way and back around. It's much safer. So, except for that guy yelling at me for some reason.
I thought he was singing.
He
I thought he was singing.
might have been singing, or he's just, losing his mind. But yeah, that building's been there since I can remember. It's apartments now, but you could see that building for miles, top of the hill. Even in the WKRP, beginning of the.
What is the building, you know?
I think now it's an apartment. Somebody told me it used to be a hotel, but it's an apartment now. But yeah, since I've known it, it's always been a hotel or an apartment. So yeah, it's been here before I was born. But there used to be trolley car poles you would see up here. There was still like barriers. One day I was walking down here to go to the boys club, and that's where I saw that guy dragging that woman in that car,
Oh.
right where the stairs are. He was dragging a woman in a car. And I was probably not even 10 years old, 8, 9 years old, somewhere like that. And he looked at me and goes, "What are you staring at?" Yeah, it was right over here where the stairs were. I was on my way to the boys club. So my mother used to let us go anywhere when we were between the ages of 1 and 9. This is where Jonathan walked all the way up the hill. Pasquale's, it was at the top of the hill. He walked all the way up that hill. He was what, 3? How did nobody notice? All the way to where she was working. That's when we realized
He had a photographic.
he has a photographic memory when it comes to directions. Amazing. Hasn't changed at all. And I don't know what they did with those barriers. Maybe they tore them down. They were like pillars that would show where the cable cars. So for you, some of you that don't know, this used to be Bob's Grocery back in the day, and it had this is where I used to buy penny candy at the top of the hill. And of course, it's abandoned now. Can't see anything in there like you used to. But we used to collect pop bottles, and it was Universal Mini Mart, but it was known as Bob's growing up. It's Guest Street. And imagine having to walk down that hill every day. There's Union Terminal in the background, historic Union Terminal, and Spinney Field is down this way. Back street, Spinney Field. And yeah, collect pops and buy penny candy. Heard he died years ago, so yeah, things change. Around the corner is where I grew up. I remember one time the whole neighborhood was out here because there was, I think there was named Connors and some other family member. They were going to fight each other because they were well known in the neighborhood to be the fighters in the neighborhood or something. They would rule the neighborhood pretty much. And this whole street was lined full of people, crowds everywhere. They were waiting to watch them both fight, because this whole neighborhood was about fighting. Even the bar across the street where I grew up, they had this thing called the Friday Night Fights. First Friday of every month is where everybody would get their welfare checks and everything, and people would spend their money on beer or booze at the bar, and they'd get drunk and they would fight. So we would see these fights out the window with the lights off, of course, because we didn't want to be a part of that or be seen. But this whole street was lined up full of people waiting for them to fist fight. And they were supposed to be like 3 o'clock. They were going to meet each other. As far as we know, it's going to be a knife fight. He had a knife and the other guy had a gun, and everybody was standing there waiting on it to happen. And they decided not to fight, and it didn't happen. But this whole hill was filled with people waiting on it. And I believe over there where you see Nevada and that fence and everything is where they lived, where they were supposed to come out and fight. So never did happen.
Thanks for watching, everyone, and join us for part 2 coming soon. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and listen to Reverse 96 FM with the descriptions on the bottom. We appreciate you and everyone for watching.